I called home the other day, and my wife said that morning it was 0. And I said, it's not 0 here, I'll guarantee you. And it has been great to be with you. I tell you what, and I was going to share with you this morning a Christmas-oriented message, but I decided last night as I started praying about this that I wanted to share a little different direction with you as we gather this morning. I want to go back to the Old Testament story of Job. Pastor said something about so goes the United States, so goes Malaysia, and so many other countries. Unfortunately, the whole world is affected by the 3 M's of the United States: our movies, our music, and our McDonald's. Everywhere you go in the world, they have been affected by those 3 things. Now, McDonald's is good, but the other 2 things that we are exporting to the world is pretty well vulgar and horrific. And I am embarrassed to be called an American when it's associated with those 2 things. But not only that, a lot of times in the church in other countries, we think of some of the influence of our preachers and our DVDs and our books and everything like that, and we think that is a good influence. But even that, my friends, you have to really sift through what you're listening to, what you're watching. Because, my friends, there is so much out there today that does not line up with God's Word. I don't care if someone gets in front of you and says, God told me. I don't care what they say God told me. If it does not line up with God's Word, then you forget anything that they say. And my friends, we have to do that today because we have a generation across the world that we would rather listen to what you say God said than get into God's Word and find out what God said to me. We need to get into God's Word, my friends. We need it so desperately today. And so one of the areas that we seem to be so easily taken up in teaching comes in the area of faith. We have one conception of faith today. It's that powerful faith to move the mountains. But sometimes we need to go back and look at the stories and the situations in the Bible so that we see the whole picture of what faith really is. And one of the best examples, and the one that I want to share with you this morning, is my servant Job, as the Lord said. Now, here we see the picture of the devil and the Lord having a conversation. And think about this now, folks. The devil didn't bring up Job. God said to the devil, have you considered my servant Job? Now, I know a lot of people in Pentecostal circles that want to have a fight with the devil. I go to some churches where they talk about the devil 3 times more than they talked about the Lord. But I'm going to tell you right now, I've had a few run-ins with the devil, and I don't want to be anywhere near him. Nowhere. Not close. I don't want him under my foot. I don't want him anywhere near my foot. I don't want to, and I really don't, I love you, Lord. But I'd really rather you didn't go mentioning my name to the devil. Because I don't want to have a fight with him, all right? I trust in the Lord, yes, but I'm not looking for a fight with the devil. And here God says to the devil, have you considered my servant Job? And what was the story from there? The devil basically told God, yes, Job loves you. He's faithful to you. But it's because you've blessed him so much. He's the richest man in the kingdom. I mean, this is rich Mr. Job. He owns everything in town. Everybody knows him. He's got everything he's ever wanted. He's got cars. He's got houses. He's got airplanes. You name it. He's rich. That's why he loves you. And God said, I think he'd love me even if it wasn't for riches. And the devil said, well, you've given him health and you've given him a family. If you took all those things away from him, then he would curse you. And so the Lord said, have at it. And in one day's time, Job goes from being the wealthiest man that we know of at that time to being a pauper. In one day's time, he goes from having a home to being homeless. He goes in one day's time to having lost all of his children. He didn't have anything else hardly to lose. And on top of all that, he is in horrible, horrific, just wrenching pain because of all the boils and the problems that had been afflicted on his body. And he is around this ash heap of his life. And in comes this woman of faith and power, Mrs. Job. And she comes up to him and she says, Job, look at all this. Curse God and die. Now, we love to give a bad rap to Mrs. Job. But I'm going to tell you that sometimes we forget what's happened to her. She has just gone from being the richest woman in the land. She has gone from being respected everywhere she goes to suddenly she is humiliated. She's embarrassed. She is poor. She's just in shatters. I saw the story of the businessman came home to his wife. And he'd been gone for a week. And he walked up to his door and he knocked on the front door. He's so excited for her to open that door and get that hug that he's been looking for. But instead of seeing her when the door opens, he just sees a hanger and a dress hanging in front of the door. And she said, "Isn't it beautiful?" Well, being the romantic, wonderful husband that he is, his first question is, how much did it cost? She said, "Is this not the prettiest color you have ever seen? How much did it cost? Isn't this the most beautiful cut you have ever seen on a dress? How much did it cost?" Finally, he hears her say, $500. He almost has a heart attack. He had never imagined you could even buy a whole store for $500 of dresses. And she has spent this on one dress. He said, "Take it back." She said, "I can't. It's final markdown, final sale, no returns." He said, "Honey, how could you do something like that?" She said, "Well, I guess the devil made me do it." He said, "I told you, honey, that when that happens, that you're supposed to say to the devil, 'Get thee behind me, Satan.'" She said, "I did. But when he got behind me, he said, 'Oh, honey, that dress looks even better from the back. You've got to buy it.'" Well, here is Mrs. Job. She's used to these $500 dresses, and suddenly she has nothing, absolutely nothing. This lady has gone through an experience that most of us will never imagine. And on top of that, the worst part of it is, remember, she's lost all her children too. Can you imagine as a mother losing all your children? This lady has been through it. And I'm going to tell you that chances are that 90% of us, if we went through that exact same thing, that same exact scenario, would say the same thing that that lady said. And yet, Job is here, his body writhing in pain, and he listens to the words of Mrs. Job, "Curse God and die." And he puts it together and says, well, if cursing God causes me to die, then blessing God must cause me to live. And suddenly from this ash heap, you start to hear this weak voice. "Bless the Lord, O my soul, O my soul." And Job starts singing. "Blessed be the name of the Lord. The Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." You see, Job found out that no matter what befall me, Jesus doeth all things well. My friends, I don't know what you're going through today. Maybe you've had a horrific tragedy, a horrific loss. Maybe you've lost a loved one. Maybe you're sick. Maybe you have lost homes or accommodations. And you're wondering, I've served the Lord faithfully. Why? I've done everything they tell me to do. I've followed every book. I've prayed this prayer. I've done this prayer. I've done it all. And I'm still here. My friends, faith is not getting out of the situation. Faith is saying, Lord, I trust you no matter what. I trust you. And we know the rest of the story, that because of that faith, Job ended his life with even more cattle and more goods, more houses, more land. But you know, there's one thing to remember about this story that you almost never hear a pastor say. Yes, Job was blessed abundantly in the end of his life. But Job never got his children back. We oftentimes think of these biblical characters as having no problems. They were these men of faith and power, and they paid no price. Friends, they were people just like you who had hurts and loss and disasters in their life. And even though they were blessed, they had losses that were beyond our minds to conceive. We often hear about all these great wonders they did, but we forget about, look in Hebrews 11, my friends, and just go down the list of these people and think about their lives. And many had trials of cruel mockings and scourgings, yea, moreover, of bonds and imprisonment. They were stoned, they were sawn asunder, they were tempted, they were slain with the sword. They wandered about in deserts and mountains and dens and caves of the earth, being destitute, afflicted, tormented. That's what it says. Friends, they had problems. But they learned that there was something so far greater than any one of their problems. They learned that Jesus doeth all things well. And they learned that even in the midst of all their problems, they could be victorious over this world. They could be victorious in their life, and they could be happy beyond anything that this world could offer. Because they realized that their relationship with Jesus Christ was so far greater than anything else that could ever happen in this world. My friends, we have lost the ball in the church today in the United States. We have people thinking that the whole reason you serve the Lord is to get things from God, to be affluent, to have the things of this world. The fact of the matter is, the church in the United States is in love with the world. They aren't in love with Jesus. Because you see, when you're in love with Jesus, you don't care about those things anymore. You don't care if you have those, because Jesus is so far greater. Have you learned that Jesus doeth all things well? When we got the diagnosis that my wife had cancer, we had a lady from our church that called up, good friend, she's a cancer survivor, and she said, you've got to keep a journal. She said, you're going to look back on all this and you're going to see all sorts of times that God did incredible miracles. I'm going to tell a story real quick, and I'm doing this for a reason, all right? Sometimes I need a break mentally. I saw the story about this three older ladies that they all went to church together. They were widows, and they kind of did everything together after their husbands died. And they were headed home from church one day, and one lady was driving, and she wasn't a real good driver. And they got in an accident, and a few minutes later, they were all experiencing that quartet song I sang, Their First Day in Heaven. And so here they are, and they get to heaven, and the story said that they were shocked by something. It's the most beautiful thing they've ever seen, but they were amazed that there were ducks everywhere, the story said. Whoever heard about ducks being there? Now, obviously, this is not theologically accurate, but And they soon learned there was just one rule. You couldn't step on a duck. Well, they're everywhere. And it was just 7 days after they got there, the First Lady stepped on a duck. And within seconds, St. Peter shows up with the ugliest, most hideous man they've ever seen. And the next thing they know, the poor lady that stepped on the duck is being chained to that ugly man, taken away for eternity. And that shook the other two up. I mean, my goodness. So they were a little more careful about ducks. But they're everywhere. I mean, everywhere. And it was just 7 months later, second lady stepped on a duck. Seconds later, here's St. Peter with an ugly man, and she's chained and taken away for eternity. Now, the third lady considered herself the smartest of the three, and she wasn't about to step on any duck. So every step she would take, she would look ahead, to the right, to the left, behind, above. I mean, every duck she could see within 50 yards or 50 meters, she would be figuring out every move they could possibly make. She was so good at it that after 10 years, she hadn't even had a close call. And on her 10th anniversary there, here comes St. Peter with the most gorgeous man she's ever seen. And he comes up to her and chains her to this beautiful man. And she's in total shock. And she looks in his eyes and she said, "Oh, I don't know what I possibly could have done to deserve this." And he looks at her and says, "I don't know about you, but I stepped on a duck." So we get this news that my wife has cancer, and a friend in our class, or in our church, called us up and said, "You need to keep a journal. There will be so many amazing things that God does, and you're going to need sometimes when you're in the hard times to go back and remember what God did for you, to remember that He's in control, and to remember that Jesus doeth all things well." So we haven't been great at it. We usually sit down once a month and just write out the highlights of what God has done. But I tell you, it has been a blessing. And so before I sing my final number this morning, I would like to share with you one day from my journal, because I believe this will let you know where we are, where we're going, and who we're trusting in. But no doubt it will also meet you where you possibly are in a situation just like this.